Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Alright, let's start off with our cosmic weather. Spaceweather.com has our solar wind recorded at 381 kilometers per second at the moment. Planetary K index is at a 2, could get up to a 3 next 24 hours. Coronal holes, about the same as yesterday. Same thing with the flares, 10% chance for an M class, X class, non-existent, and mid-latitudes or high latitudes, 30% chance you could have some sort of minor activity. But that's about it. Otherwise, things are essentially quiet. Go over to our astrology for today. Well, we're dealing with the same sun sign, which is Virgo. That puts us, Virgo being an earth sign, so dealing with issues, practicality, finding a way to hold our light high and shine our light bright, because Virgo is the hermit who holds the light high for others to see. So that's the conscious mind. And unconsciously, we have right here, Scorpio. And Scorpio is a water sign. Water is emotions. Scorpio deals with emotions that are sometimes really buried deep. And so sometimes they can seem as if they come from a darker place, simply because the deeper one goes, the less light there is, and the more darkness is around there. It doesn't mean the darkness is bad, just means that there is more darkness there to deal with, and therefore more things unseen in the unconscious that need to be dealt with, and the figuring out how to deal with the things. So a lot of emotions and feelings being processed underneath, while at the same time trying to figure out a way how to get those on the outside expressing themselves. Alright, right here, the moon is on its way up to a full moon. We're now at 16%. And on the Mayan Oracle, we're at a 10-tone day. 10-tone is called the planetary tone. Here's the 10th position right here. The kin for today is the wizard, so today would be a planetary wizard guided by the wind, which is above it. So you got a supporting cast of a seed, serpent, and hand. And the phrase is, I perfect in order to enchant, producing receptivity. I seal the output of timelessness with the planetary tone of manifestation. I am guided by the power of spirit. And we're still in that period of time, a 10-day period of time here. Okay, we've got one more yet to go, and that's going to be tomorrow here. Is that last day in that period of time for us. Okay. And on the Gregorian calendar, today is the 19th of September 2012. Alright, that catches you up to speed. Hopefully you understand what to do with this information. Basically just allow yourself to understand what's going on over the course of the day. See how you interact with the energy, and see how the things we talked about, the ideas of the elements, see how they play themselves out in your life. It's not a test that if you don't get the answer right today, something's going to happen. All it is just an opportunity for you to study the way that you use energy. And that's really basically what we're doing every day, learning more and more how we use the energy around us. And the better we are at using the energy, the more effective we can be in life in many, many ways. Alright, so the first piece I'm going to play today, it's called Timewave 2013. We're approaching the year 2013. We're only, well, less than 4 months away now. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we get there, because there's been a lot of prophecy leading up to that point that has played itself out and will continue to play itself out. 2013 is a time where we're looking for a fresh opportunity. Anyway, these are some of the names that you've heard of in the whole Mayan calendar galactic change 2012 movement. So this is a piece. It's kind of a compilation. Here we go.
We are heading toward a singularity in history in which yesterday looks nothing like today and today looks nothing like tomorrow at all.
Almost universally, ancient texts and traditions say that we're preparing for 1,000 years of a peaceful coexistence in this world, and that sometimes our greatest strengths become apparent when we face the greatest challenges together.
In the small town of Elberton, Georgia, stands a mysterious monument built in 1980 by an anonymous gentleman named R.C. Christian. The Georgia Guidestones contain a message for the people of the future, describing a new way to live. For some, it is a message of hope. For others, a message of fear. Every year, millions of people pass by the murals at the Denver airport. These murals seem to be telling us a story about the choices we must face as we look towards the future. In the small town of Hendaye in the south of France, there is an ancient monument describing the events that will occur at the end of our age. In Izapa, Guatemala, the early Mayan people left behind their long count calendar, which told of a day when the fifth sun will end and the sixth sun will begin. According to this calendar, the shift of the ages will occur on December 21st, 2012. The Q'ero people of Peru believe that we are now going through a time of purification. They have a prophecy called Pachacuti, which speaks of a time when the Inca will return and a new human will be born. The prophecies say that this will happen in 2012.
The singularity that arises for no reason in absolutely empty space instantly is the least likely of all singularities. The Big Bang is the notion that the universe, for no reason, sprang from nothing in a single instant. Notice that this is the limit test for credulity. That it is not possible to conceive of something more unlikely or less likely to be believed. That the universe would spring from nothing in a single instant for no reason, it makes no sense. It is in fact no different than saying, and God said, let there be light. What the philosophers of science are saying is, give us one free miracle, and we will roll from that point forward, from the birth of time to the crack of doom. Doesn't it seem more likely, if we have to have a singularity, that it occurs in a domain with a rich history, with many causal streams feeding into the situation that nurtures the complexity? In other words, to put it simply, if you have to have a singularity, doesn't it make more sense to put it at the end of a cosmogonic process than at the beginning?
My inquiry into the end date of the Mayan long count calendar took me to Peru. Because of the protection of the high altitude of the Andes Mountains, the Q'ero, or Inca people, are one of the last indigenous peoples of the Americas whose ancient traditions are not only still intact, but alive and breathing. The Q'ero escaped the Spanish conquest by moving into the high Andes, where they have lived for over 500 years. They speak little or no Spanish and still retain the beliefs and customs that have been passed down for many generations. The Q'ero have an ancient prophecy concerning the return of Pachacuti, their great leader from before the conquest. Pachacuti, which means the turning over of the earth, also left behind a prophecy. In this prophecy, he said that this age of conquest and domination would come to an end. A new human would be born, and the earth would be restored to its former beauty and grace. The Q'ero say that the return of Pachacuti is scheduled for 2012. On my way through some of the highest mountains in the Western Hemisphere, I met and came to know the descendants of the once mighty Inca Empire who still live here. Extremely poor by our standards, the people of Peru have an inner fire and a deeply profound spiritual tradition which has nourished them and kept them alive through many historical calamities. Sacred Valley has been carved out by the Urubamba River, which begins with the melted glaciers that lie at the top of majestic mountains which rise over 20,000 feet above sea level. Eventually, the Urubamba pours its contents into the vast Amazon Delta and finally into the Atlantic Ocean. Dotting the mountains throughout the Sacred Valley and beyond are many ancient Inca ruins. These ruins are magnificent, and one has to wonder how the ancient Inca were able to construct these temples using such huge stones and fit them together so perfectly. Once more I met up with Doña Bernardina and Don Umberto, shaman healers of the Q'ero. I wanted to know more about the prophecy of Pachacuti. I was assisted by Dr. Alberto Violdo, who translated their words into English for me.
These are the last of the Inca. They are the elders of the Q'ero nation and their children. The Q'ero fled to high mountaintops at the time of the conquest and took with them the body of prophecies and processes for awakening the luminous body. Evolutionary quantum leaps have always occurred during times of crisis. Today we're facing such a crisis with global warming, with depleting oil reserves, with an oil-based economy. Gracias, compadre. These men and women have lived in high mountains for 500 years, and they predict that during the next 6 years, between now and the year 2012, we will be facing global crises of a dimension that we have not dreamt of before. And not a single crisis, but multiple crises occurring simultaneously, cascading crises. And whereas we may be prepared to meet the challenges of a great hurricane or a storm or an earthquake, several of these occurring simultaneously would be devastating to our economy, to our society, to the fabric of our lives. These seers left a body of prophecy 500 years ago that spoke about the return of Pachacuti, the return of the luminous ones.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. Thank you very much. UFO News today. I have four good stories. First one comes to us from Crawley, England on the 15th of September. There's some images right there of what was captured. The video captured glowing orbs as they were uniting into a group again. Sadly, the video does not show how they leave or what they did later, which would be helpful. These red lights have been seen all over the UK for many years. Watch how they make a triangle formation and then a diamond formation, which shows intelligence. Okay. Here we have our initial object. Let's see, this video itself is a little over 3 minutes, so I'm going to zip through it. Okay, there's a difference in the shape there. Maybe it's the angle that it's being shot. Certainly as it changes, it looks more like almost like a pyramid with the base and the top here. You could see. Very interesting. Alright, so the video's there. You can put this in there. Here we go. Change shape right here. Alright, you can check out the video, enlarge it so you can see it better. That's their first one out of Crawley, England. Now we have a sighting from Melbourne, Australia. This was a close-up. This right here is the object in question. An eagle-eyed listener to 3AW afternoon program believes he may have filmed the UFO in the skies above Melbourne last week. Ivan says the neighbor called out to him early last Tuesday evening, telling him to look up at a strange light. It was the excuse me. It was this bright object flying around quite a pace, doing unusual turns and what have. What have you? I was looking out at it about 10 minutes, spinning to have no. It was behaving like no aircraft I could have seen as I was recording. I was dismissing what could be, what it could not be. It was really intriguing to me, he said. I was bewildered by what I was observing. Ivan told reporters, I looked up in the sky and saw this bright object maneuvering phenomenally. It was descending and then ascending. It was weird. Ivan described it as a brighter star which changed through a myriad of colors as it pulsated across the sky. It was blue, then green, then red, then white. It was astounding to watch. Alright, so there's no video with this, just the image itself. Alright, so check this out. I'm going to move on to the next story here. We have over Kazakhstan on the 18th of September. This was filmed over Priozersk. Let's take a look at what we've got here. There's quite a bright light there. It's just sitting. Actually, it's like a grouping of lights. Looks like here's the close-up version of what's going on there. Alright, very interesting and what that could be. And the last story for today. This story, it's a report over anti-UFO military collaboration between the U.S. and China. There are reports revealing an alleged cooperation between the United States and China to create a combat mission against a dangerous and deadly threat from unusual and unearthly enemies. It was claimed that American and Chinese naval forces were off San Francisco, California on a joint combat operation against possible attack by UFOs. There have been speculations that emerged following the existence of such reports. One claimed that the U.S. was forced to use its most advanced suborbital weapons and UFO tracking sensor to defend against extraterrestrials that are believed to have been lurking under the sea. The joint operation is truly beyond what a person could imagine, as efforts and strategies being executed by these two countries are quite far from what the reality is supposed to offer. The alleged target threat is tagged as unfriendly, highly dangerous, and life-threatening, which, according to the reports, was responded with tight military security and action. The claimed collaborative mission was also confirmed by an intelligence agency in Asia, disclosing that both the Chinese and American governments went aggressive to respond to what it described as a potential extraterrestrial terrorism. Claims and speculations related to the phenomenon military combat mission continues to spread in public, but neither one of the two countries confirmed even just one. Long had before this allegation occurred, many claims that involved actual UFO sightings were rejected after being proven that they were fabricated, but it would still be alarming to know such operation actually happened.
September 17, 2012, on a Monday.
All right, and here's a video here. Just
is what it says.
and
Highly unfriendly.
it's just going over the story.
The true nature of both the threat.
So, what's up with this? Again, look, are there beings out there in the universe that are friendly? Yes. Are there beings in the universe that are not friendly? Yes. Are some of these friendly beings coming down to the planet? Absolutely. What about the non-friendly ones? Yes, they are. Does that mean, though, that the non-friendly ones are coming here and that we're going to be in a fight and that these are they down here fighting with us now? No. Remember, there's lots of movies that Americans and around the world like to make about extraterrestrials coming down and causing problems. Right? You've seen the movies, you heard about the movies. Now, wasn't there a movie not too long ago that had to do with an extraterrestrial battle that took place out in the ocean? Just came out earlier this year. Wasn't it called Battlefield or Battleship? Something to that effect. So here we have a situation. Doesn't seem too far off to some way they're telling the story than the movie. So I'm just saying that whatever's going on, take it all with a grain of salt. Find out more information about this. Don't jump to conclusions, because if there's reports coming out, and if the reports have anything to do with the mainstream media, the establishment media, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, all of those, you know, the general ones, if it's coming out from these sources, there's a possibility that there's some propaganda around it and the information you're getting is not necessarily as it should be. So it's important to use your common sense here. One of the things that has been talked about is when things get too tense down here in America, in the world, and people, earthlings in particular, do not know how to solve their own problems, and the fighting becomes so great that the administrations want to stage an alien invasion. That way all of you humans here in America will say, oh, the government's going to save us. Let's put aside all of our differences. Let the government save us against these bad extraterrestrials. That's part of a plan that's out there. Believe it or not, it sounds far-fetched, but it's true. So, whatever reports come out about this, whatever you hear, don't jump to conclusions. Don't be like one of those that you see in the movie that just starts shooting before you really know what's going on. Remember the first movie that came out, The Day the Earth Stood Still? Remember when Klaatu first came off of the spaceship? He was coming bringing a gift of peace, and he was shot by an overzealous military member of the military, one of the soldiers. We've seen this play out over and over again in other shows, other movies. Someone comes to bring peace, but then there's all this confusion that goes on. Anyway, I'm just rambling because it's the same old story. Americans are pointing to the skies as extraterrestrials are going to be bad, and then humans, earthlings, who kind of like monkey see, monkey do, they hear a story and they repeat it, and pretty soon that's what they think is the truth. I'm trying to be that voice out there to say, before you take it as truth, think about it. Use your common sense. Don't just allow the media to push you around and tell you what to think. They're getting away with it with a lot of people, and that's too bad. I thought there were a lot more people in America who knew how to think for themselves. Apparently not. But since you are thinking for yourself, maybe you can encourage others to keep doing the same thing, because it will help, especially in situations like this. Anyway, that's enough of my rambling. I'll be back momentarily. Stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
Continuing on. Here we go. Paul Subcommittee to examine Federal Reserve interest rate policy. Congressman Ron Paul, chairman of the Domestic Monetary Policy and Technology Subcommittee, announced today that the subcommittee will hold a hearing to examine the effects of the Federal Reserve's interest rate policy on the American people. The hearing, entitled The Price of Money, Consequences of the Federal Reserve's Zero Interest Rate Policy, will be held on Friday, September 21st at 9:30 a.m. in room 2128 of the Rayburn House Office Building. Witnesses scheduled to testify would be James Grant, editor of Grant's Interest Rate Observer, and Louis Lerman, senior partner of L.E. Lerman and Company. The Federal Reserve is relentless in pursuing a policy of zero interest rates, as manifest by the decision last week to do another round of quantitative easing and keep the federal funds rate at zero for another 3 years. The Fed is intent on ignoring their policy of low interest rates in the past, brought us to the financial crisis of 2008, and their zero interest rate policy of today is prolonging the agony while slowing the seeds for a much larger crash in the future. Stated Chairman Paul. The manipulation of interest rates, essentially price setting, can only ever have destructive effects on the American economy. Artificially low interest rates can cause malinvestment and misallocation of resources throughout the economy. Savers and investors suffer from negative real interest rates, while the federal government takes advantages of the Fed's zero interest rate policy to run up gargantuan fiscal deficits. These problems cannot and will not be remedied until the Fed stops manipulating the price of money. All right, so Ron Paul's out there still fighting for the freedoms of America, and yet, how many Americans really understand that he's standing up for them? All right, well, now we're going to turn our attention from what Dr. Paul is doing to what the man in office is doing. Now, National Defense Authorization Act. Remember how this is flip-flop back and forth? First, on New Year's Eve, Obama signs it. While everyone's out partying and having a good old time, he takes time out from his partying and having a good time to sign a bill that says all Americans are subject to indefinite detention. Good job, Mr. President. But then there were judges who started speaking up against this. And then there was a judge most recently who said that, nope, we weren't going to be doing this part of it, and put a hold on it. And then the Obama administration, they didn't like that, because even though that they came out after the fact and said, oh, no, we don't want to definitely detain any Americans, their actions seemed to be contrary to what they were saying, because they wanted to make sure that this was in there. So now, after the story the other day, here's the most recent one. Obama wins the right to indefinitely detain Americans. A lone appeals judge bowed down to Obama administration late Monday and reauthorized the White House's ability to detain American citizens without charge or due process. Last week, a federal judge ruled that a temporary injunction on Section 1021 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2012 must be made permanent, essentially barring the White House from ever enforcing a clause in the NDAA that can let them put any U.S. citizen behind bars indefinitely over mere allegations of terrorist associations. On Monday, the U.S. Justice Department asked for an emergency stay on that order, and hours later, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit Court, Raymond Lawyer, agreed to intervene and place a hold on the injunction. The stay will remain in effect until September 28th, when a 3-judge appeals court panel is expected to begin addressing the issue. On December 1st, 2011, U.S. President Barack Obama, or is it Barry? One of the two, Barry Soetoro. Anyway, that guy in office, he signed the NDAA into law, even though he insisted on accompanying the authorization with a statement explaining his hesitance to essentially eliminate habeas corpus for the American people. The fact that I support this bill as a whole does not mean I agree with everything in it, President Obama wrote. In particular, I have signed this bill because, and we know why, because he's a slave. He doesn't really think for himself. This is what his handlers had told him he has had to do, apparently. Well, there's a long article here. We can go on and can read the nonsense, right? But don't we get it? This man is not for America. He wants to definitely detain Americans. And anyone out there who's going to vote for this man again, you should really investigate National Defense Authorization Act. You should see what it's about. And yes, you should really come to the cold, hard reality that if you're an American citizen, this applies to you as well. So go ahead and vote for the man again. And he's going to make sure that more bills get passed like this to really make things more strict. So pay attention, folks. Pay attention. You're being played. That's all I can say. Now, here's another situation to pay attention to. EPA's 4-gallon minimum mandate. The latest mandate handed down from the Environmental Protection Agency is so ridiculous, even I was shocked. The EPA has now mandated how much gasoline you must buy at a certain gas stations. Say hello to the Obama administration, 4-gallon minimum. The unprecedented EPA overreach applies when filling up at a gas station that provides both EH15 and E15 and E10 gasoline with 15 or 10% of ethanol, respectively, from the same hose. At the insistence of the ethanol industry, the Obama administration is pushing E15 into the marketplace regardless of the serious concerns about the fuel impact on drivers. From its inception, E15 is a study in the consequence of the government interference in the marketplace. The EPA's decision to set a minimum purchase requirement is just the most recent example. If this seems too far-fetched to be true, here's what the EPA recently wrote in a letter to American Motorcyclist Association. EPA requires that retail stations that own or operate blender pumps either disperse E15 from a dedicated hose and nozzle, or if able, in the case of E15 and E10 being dispensed from the same hose, require that at least 4 gallons of fuel be purchased to prevent vehicles and engines with smaller fuel tanks from being exposed to gasoline ethanol blend fuels containing greater than 10% ethanol. Alright. Yada, yada, yada. You know, are you noticing a sense of I don't really care anymore about some of this nonsense? I guess I've just seen so much of it that the lies are there, and I'm just pointing out more of what should be obvious to you, and you should be feeling the same way. It's just discussing what's going on out there. And it's even more disgusting that these things keep happening because good people are saying and doing nothing. That is why this is going on. Because people sit out there on their butts every day and say, this can't happen. Geez, I don't think our government would do anything bad to hurt us. The media must be telling us the truth. Then every day there's people that you know and I know that believe these exact things. Well, I don't know how to respond to these things anymore other than to tell you I'm desperately trying to see that point of view, but I just can't stick my head that far up my ass. So whatever's going on, man, people, wake up. Wake up. Here's another one. This one has been going on for so long it's ridiculous. Arpaio investigator, Hawaii is still covering up for Obama. And yet, the man still has people bowing down to him like judges, changing their orders, and yet there's still states that are saying, oh yeah, we've got the proof from Hawaii. Really? Hawaii's covering him up, according to an investigator who's been in the FBI a long time. Mike Zullo, lead investigator in Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio's investigation of Barack Obama's eligibility president, says he has returned from a second trip to Hawaii with additional evidence. The State Department of Hawaii of Health is maintaining a cover-up of Obama's 1961 birth records. When Arpaio dispatched Zullo for a second trip, the assignment was kept confidential for the Zullo's safety and to prevent media leaks. Only Arpaio and Chief Deputy of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office were aware of the assignment. In Honolulu, Zullo worked closely with local contacts, including Duncan Sonohara, the brother of Virginia Sonohara, an infant child born in Hawaii on August 4, 1961, the same day Obama was born and died the next day. As WND reported, Virginia Sonohara entered as a figure in the Obama birth conspiracy because no birth certificate for her has been located, leading to speculation her birth certificate could have been the source of Obama's. Well, there's more and more here. Again, there's a president in office being investigated by an investigative team, and the investigation is being ignored. And yet the man in office continues to put laws in effect, like the National Defense Authorization Act, and yet people still laugh at Sheriff Joe and Mike Zullo for what they're doing. People out there are really screwed up that they would look at this investigation, bypass it, and then try to justify the other actions that President Obama is doing. The other day when someone was telling me about the Obama stuff, I said, take the storyline of Obama being from Kenya, that Obama's not from America, that he has sympathy towards them, plug that in and see if your whole story makes a different sense. Of course it makes a different sense, but the person couldn't even conceive of the idea that these things were true, because the media, who's supposed to be honest with you, has lied, has told people that the information is not important. They've laughed at the birthers. Yet the very original birthers, Bill and Hillary Clinton, are quite silent about it. As a matter of fact, Bill had no problem standing up giving his endorsement for Obama, even though he's one of the original ones who says Obama's not even from this country. Again, the hypocrisy of the whole situation is absolutely out of control. Absolutely out of control. This is why we have to look to something beyond, and this is why I'm looking and finding that just focusing on the politics and the physical things isn't going to get anyone anywhere. You got to look at the spiritual, because there's a spiritual battle going on. If you think that you can fight this new world order physically, then you're out of your mind. There's not a way that you can do it, because the American military machine is good at one thing: murder. They've become good at killing. They practice killing on a regular basis. If you're not out there doing that, and you're going to encounter someone who's used to that, you might be at a bit of a disadvantage. Therefore, it'd be important for you to practice the things that are going to assist you the most. The things that will assist you the most is the spirituality. That's why we're going to keep going back to the spirit from now on. I'm going to bring you up to show you that there's things going on in the world that are negative, that are fighting and going against the spirit. And I want to keep pointing out to you that there is a spiritual battle taking place. And the only way we can counteract this is to go into the spirit. Okay? Let me continue on with the rest of the stories here. This next one here has to do with that battle of light and dark. This is called the rise of the second beast in Babylon the Great. I'm not the only one who says Obama is the beast. There's been many others. Here is one of them. Check it out.
As part of the evil cabal's code, they must first publicly present their plans before doing them. As previously seen, all the bombings in the United States have been shown ahead of time by having images of those bombings printed on U.S. currency notes. In keeping with the satanic code of mockery, the new satanic rule would announce their plans publicly. Barack Obama's acceptance speech at the Denver Broncos Stadium was one such public mockery, but the significance remained hidden from the eyes of those who live in total darkness. The altar where the president stood was an exact replication of the seat of Pergamum, the seat of Zeus. This is a direct reference to the Bible, referring to the seat of Satan. Mr. Obama gave his acceptance speech on a replica of the seat of Satan, suggesting that he, Satan, would take his throne at this time through the fit extension known as Barack Obama. The stadium also displays prominently an image of a white horse, once again alluding to the Antichrist in the book of Revelation. Many public displays, such as the Super Bowl halftime show, are merely in reality a satanic ritualistic ceremony, mocking the enslaved masses of deluded sheep. As Madonna took center stage at the Super Bowl, she stood on top of her throne, striking many interesting poses, many resembling the former goddess Ishtar. Her throne also resembled the Hoover Dam, also suggesting the destruction of the Hoover Dam as printed on the $50 bill. All of these public rituals and satanic displays are all the eventuality of the rise of the second beast out of the sea of humanity. The stunning resemblance of Barack Obama to Akhenaten is irrefutable. The reality that an alien is standing in the body of Akhenaten is also easy to perceive in the hieroglyph of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. The rise of the beast, or the alien, would again find a fit extension in Barack Obama as the restored temple of the beast.
So, very interesting indeed. Moving right along. Alright, this is a reality check. Ben Swan, always insightful. Here we go.
They are called green on blue attacks, when Afghan soldiers or police turn their weapons on coalition forces. And it's happening more and more often, including this weekend with the most dramatic attack against the U.S. possibly during the entire Afghanistan war. This is a reality check you won't see anywhere else. Let's begin tonight by talking about what happened in Afghanistan over the weekend. 10 p.m. Friday night, 15 enemy fighters got into Camp Bastion. Dressed in U.S. Army uniforms, they cut their way through the outer wire, then blew a hole through the base wall. Armed with automatic weapons, RPGs, and suicide vests, they split into teams. One team went for the Harrier jet fighters, another for the fueling stations, and a third for the helicopters. Within just 30 minutes, the damage was done. 2 U.S. Marines were killed in that attack, 8 fighter jets destroyed, and the cost of all the damage, which of course is secondary to those Marines' lives, $200 million. But that's not all. Over the weekend, in a remote area near the border with Pakistan, 4 U.S. soldiers were killed by men in Afghan National Police uniforms. Of course, Afghan military and police killing U.S. and NATO soldiers is not new. But it certainly raises the question, why is the U.S. planning to keep soldiers in Afghanistan for another decade after the supposed end of the war? It's a question I asked President Obama himself when I interviewed him one-on-one just a couple of weeks ago. Is it worth it for us to retain American lives there, Americans who were being killed by these Afghan soldiers they're supposed to be training? Shouldn't we just bring all those troops home, or do we stay another 10 years?
Well, keep in mind, we're not planning to stay another 10 years. This war will be over in 2014. What we've said is we'll partner with Afghans, just as we partner with a whole bunch of countries all around the world.
Now let's stop there, because what the president just said there is misleading. Yes, the official combat operation ends in 2014, but an agreement signed by President Obama and Afghan President Hamid Karzai keeps the U.S. deeply involved in Afghanistan until at least 2024. Under that agreement, the U.S. has said it expects to keep about 20,000 troops in Afghanistan after 2014 to mentor and to train the Afghan National Security Forces while also taking part in counterterrorism operations. The agreement also says the U.S. will continue to fund that 352,000-strong Afghan security forces after 2014. The U.S. officials have said they expect to pay about $4 billion a year for all this. Now the rest of what President Obama said.
The recent spate of what are called green on blue attacks, where folks who are at least in Afghan police or military uniforms end up attacking us, is something that's deeply troubling, and our Joint Chiefs are spending a lot of time on. Keep in mind, though, there are 300,000 Afghan soldiers that are partnering with us. And so even one attack like this is one too many.
And on the numbers there, the president is correct. The number of these green on blue attacks are statistically low in comparison with the number of troops on the ground. But that's not the whole story. According to coalition forces, in 2007 and 2008, there were a combined total of 4 attacks and 4 deaths in what are called insider attacks, or those green on blue attacks. 2010, it was 11 attacks and 20 deaths. 2011, 21 attacks and 35 deaths. And so far in 2012, 36 attacks this year, killing 51 NATO members, most of them Americans. So what you need to know is that the attacks on U.S. forces by Afghan military and police this year, more than the last 2 years combined. It's what you call trending. So what do the trends tell us? More Afghan soldiers each year and more Afghan police killing our troops than ever before. The attacks on U.S. bases more brazen and doing more damage. And the Taliban stronger than ever. A situation that should make every American question what we just spent the last 10 years doing. And that is Reality Check.
Yep, every American should question that. But, you know, it's like 10 years too late. People should have been questioning. A lot more people should have been questioning 9/11. But instead, they laughed at the people who did. The same cast of characters that are out there causing problems back then are still causing problems right now. And the same ones who have been helping them back then, the American government, is still helping them right now. If you think you live in America and America's a great country because the people leading this are great, filled with integrity, and leading us in the right direction, along the path of God, you are absolutely incorrect. America is not leading you to the path of God. They are leading you to the path of Satan. American, you need to step up. The rest of the world needs to step up, and you need to think really quickly because time is getting short. You're being played, and I'll say it over and over again. You're being played. You want to deny what I'm saying? Great. Run away in denial. But you're being played. And when you come to that reality and you understand that, maybe you'll open your eyes and you'll stop being played. Because I'm tired of watching every day people, good people, being fooled. I'm tired of watching it. Aren't you tired of watching your friends getting fooled? I know. It's not very much fun, is it? Especially when you tell them over and over and you kind of wonder why your friends are so slow mentally when they brag about how they get things so quickly. Man, people aren't getting it. Here's what's going on. There's been mind control. Mind control has been happening for a while, and Americans are subject to it, and they think they're so immune to it. Here's a story. This comes to us out of InfoWars, John Rappaport. It's so simple and everybody knows it. Mind control focuses on 2 elements, image and feeling. By linking the 2 primary elements, it is possible to short-circuit thought and cut to the chase when it comes to enlisting the allegiance of huge populations. 2 seemingly unrelated events spurred my interest in mass mind control. On the evening of April 12, 1945, I listened to a radio report on the death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt when I was 7 years old. I became upset. I didn't know why. I was angry at my own reaction. 40 years later, I pulled into a gas station near my apartment in West Los Angeles. I got out of my car and took the cap off my gas tank. I looked to the right and saw Tony Curtis sitting in his car. I was shocked. A few days later, I began making notes under the heading of Image Emotion Cues. At the time, I had just started working as a reporter writing articles for the LA Weekly. I knew next to nothing about mind control, MK-Ultra, Soviet psychiatric gulags, Chinese re-education programs, and U.S. psychological warfare operations. But because I had been painting for 25 years, I knew something about the power of images. I remember my first exhibition of painting in L.A. at my friend Haji Lama's house. We had hung her work in the living room and dining room. Hadijah's had enlisted the services of a friend who had helped videotape my paintings in my studio, and at the exhibition she set up a television set out on her patio and continuously played video cassette. People came through her front door almost automatically, walked through the house to the patio as if guided by an unseen hand, and watched the video. They came back inside and looked at the paintings. I would stop painting and say, "That picture was in the video. You see that one? It was in my studio." My first note on image emotion cues was investigating an image with importance, projecting emotion into an image, projecting emotion into a newspaper image of the president, FDR, projecting emotion into the screen image of Tony Curtis, projecting emotion into a video painter working in a studio. When people encounter an image, when they invest it with importance, they project feeling into the image, and all this happens in a private sphere, a private space. Alright, as you can see, there's a lot more to this article. Read this article. This is one of many different subjects that have been dealt with on this show about mind control, psychological operations. You're being played. Stop being played unless you enjoy it, unless you enjoy going through every day pretending like you don't know what's going on. But here's what you can do. Turn off the mainstream TV. And that includes Fox. And I know Fox tries to distance themselves. They're all lying to you. And yet every day I watch people who are informed and know that they're lying turn these stations on and expect that they're going to hear some truth. That's called insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result. To keep turning on Fox expecting they're going to tell you the truth is insanity. They're not going to tell you the truth. It's not in their vested interest. They've put too much money over the years into telling you false truths. Same goes with CNN and all of the other channels that are out there. They're not interested in telling you the truth. It's not best for their agenda. So mind control goes on all the time. And unless you get control of your emotions and your own ability to look at things and think for yourself, you will be thinking the way somebody else wants you to think. For real. And you know what I'm talking about. Do a test. I have certain people that I know watch Fox News. And after they watch Fox News, and only Fox News, and they admit that's the only thing they watch, I will call them up and I will ask them about particular issues that I knew Fox had addressed, and I will listen to them repeat back to me word for word what was just told to them on how to think. And they repeat it back with the emotion that is now their personal vested program that they're believing in. And they'll spout it back. And yet they have no interest in it. They're just repeating what they heard. That's what goes on. The mainstream thinks you'll just repeat back what they say and you won't fact check. Stop repeating back what they say and do some fact checking. And once you start fact checking, you'll stop listening to those shows because you'll realize all they're doing is misinforming you. And you'll start to find out that when you go online to shows like this, and there's tons of alternative media shows out there, you'll start to find out that the news that is being presented to you is way more truthful than the news that's coming from the mainstream. So think for yourselves. Very important. Now, last thing we're going to do for today is our meditation. But the meditation leading up to that is with the book Warrior of the Light. Because as I said, we're in a spiritual battle. Spiritual battle requires spiritual beings. Beings to step up and understand their own inner spiritual strength, the inner warrior within them. So this book is filled with passages, and I've been reading them every day, 6 a day. I'm going to continue on doing that same thing today, because it's very important that all of these things are understood. All right, so bring this up for you here, and I will continue on. Here we go. The warrior of the light knows that it is impossible to live in a state of complete relaxation. He has learned from the archer that in order to shoot his arrow any distance, he must hold the bow taut. He has learned from the stars that only inner explosion allows them to shine. The warrior notices that when the horse is about to jump over a fence, it tenses all its muscles, but he never confuses tension with anxiety. The warrior of the light always manages to balance his rigor and mercy. To attain his dream, he needs a strong will and an enormous capacity for acceptance. Although he may have an objective, the path that leads to that objective is not always as he imagined it would be. That is why the warrior uses a mixture of discipline and compassion. God never abandons his children, but his purposes are unfathomable, and he builds the road with our own steps. The warrior uses that combination of discipline and acceptance to fuel his enthusiasm. Routine was never the leader of any important new movement. The warrior of light sometimes behaves like water flowing around obstacles he encounters. Occasionally resistance might mean destruction, and so he adapts to the circumstances. He accepts without complaint that the stones in his path hinder his way through the mountains. Therein lies the strength of water. It cannot be touched by a hammer or ripped to shreds by a knife. The strongest sword in the world cannot scar its surface. The river adapts itself to whatever route proves impossible, but the river never forgets its one objective, the sea. So fragile at its source, it gradually gathers the strength of other rivers it encounters, and after a certain point, its power is absolute. A warrior of the light who trusts too much in his intelligence will end up underestimating the power of his opponent. It is important not to forget that sometimes strength is more effective than strategy. A bullfight is over quickly because the bull learns that it is being tricked, and the next step is to charge the bullfighter. When that happens, no amount of brilliance, argument, intelligence, or charm can avert tragedy. That is why the warrior never underestimates brute force. When it proves too violent, he withdraws from the battlefield until the enemy has exhausted himself. The warrior of the light knows that when the enemy is stronger, if he decides to confront him, he will be destroyed instantly. If he responds to his provocations, he will fall into a trap. So he uses diplomacy to resolve the difficult situation in which he finds himself. When the enemy behaves childishly, he does the same. When he challenges him to a fight, he pretends not to understand. His friends say he's a coward, but the warrior pays no attention because he knows that all the rage and the courage of a little bird are as nothing to a cat. In such situations, the warrior remains patient. The enemy will soon go off in search of others to provoke. A warrior of the light is never indifferent to injustice. He knows that all are one and that each individual action affects everyone on the planet. That is why, when confronted by the suffering of others, he uses his sword to restore order. But even though he fights against oppression, at no point does he attempt to judge the oppressor. Each person will answer for his actions before God, and so, once the warrior has completed his tasks, he makes no further comment. A warrior of the light is in the world in order to help his fellow man, not to condemn his neighbor. So take a deep breath. Allow all of those words about the warrior of light, all of the insight, to reach inside and unlock the information you already have. And as you do, you realize that the information being presented is not new. The information presented is what you already know deep down inside. And all you have to do is allow it to shine. To use the intelligence that you have been given by the Creator. And as you begin to trust that intelligence, you'll find that your life operates much more intelligently. Imagine all of your chakras are activated from the bottom of the spine, red, the belly button, orange, just below the rib cage, yellow, at the heart, green, the throat, blue, the third eye, violet, and the crown chakra, indigo, and the light continues on into the cosmos. Honor your connection to all that is, was, and ever shall be. Imagine sending love out into the world and encouragement for all of the warriors of the light to stand forward now, for the strength within each individual to rise. Let's just think a good thought for everyone in the world. And with that, bring our energy and attention back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. There you have it. It's the end of our show. Prayer, meditation. Thanks for being here again. Remember, the warrior of light is inside of you. It's inside of each one of us. And as we bring that warrior forward, we're able to conquer the darkness in front of us. And these times we're in, they require all of us to step forward, to be the warrior that we were created to be. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. You have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.